Hello students, this is your English lesson. Today we are going to start Oxford Modern English Book 8. And in this regard, the first poem we are going to learn is When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. So we start our lesson. This is page number 2 from your book. First of all, words to know. Astronomer, a scientist who studies stars, moons, planets, and other objects in space. Learned, well educated, usually written as learned and pronounced with two syllables. Learned, here it pronounced as one syllable to reflect an ordinary person's way of speaking. Lectured. A lecture is a talk or presentation on a subject. Lecture room. In the 19th century, people often went to listen to talks by experts on a range of subjects. These were held in public rooms or in community halls. Mystical. Having or inspiring or fascination. Proofs, evidence that a mathematical equation is true. Now read the poem together. When I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I sitting heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out, I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. Students, this poem is written by Walt Whitman. In this poem, a renowned American poet wants to express his feeling about the tiring lectures of an astronomer. He also tells us fact that mystery of nature cannot be summed up in facts and figures. The poet himself narrates about learning against knowledge. He is listening to an astronomer who is explaining facts about stars using several mathematical tools, charts, diagrams, and columns. The audience appreciate it, but the poet is tired because of uninteresting lecture. At last he walks out of the hall and looks up at the stars in perfect silence. He is more fascinated by the charming stars than the proofs and evidence about stars. Now come to the exercises. A. Understanding the poem. 1. Answer the following questions. A. In the first half of the poem, where is the poet? Answer. In the first half of the poem, the poet is in a lecture room. B. Who is he with and what is he doing? Answer. He is with an audience listening to a learned astronomer talk. C. Which words or phrases show that the astronomer is respected by the poet and the audience? Answer. Learned and with much applause. D. What scientific tools and methods does the astronomer use? Answer. The scientific tools and methods that the astronomer uses are proofs and figures arranged in charts and diagrams used to add, divide, and measure. E. In the second half of the poem, where is the poet? Answer. In the second half of the poet is outside. F. Who is he with and what is he doing? Answer. He is on his own and he is looking at the night sky. G. What does What words and images in the first half of the poem are a contrast to the perfect silence in the final line? Answer. The words and images in the first half of the poem that contrast to the perfect silence in the final line are heard the learned astronomer and lectured with much applause. Both describe the sound of the lecture, and the word heard is repeated, clearly suggesting noise. The second phrase begins in the noise of the audience. The list of proof, figure, columns, charts, diagrams, etc. implies that the lecture is a continuous noise. This question is more difficult. Discuss it first. H. What is the message of this poem? Answer. The poet is suggesting that science cannot show us the mystical wonder of nature. We must experience it for ourselves. B. Working with words, contractions. When speaking and in informal writing, people often use contraction. Examples. They might say, I don't like instead of I do not like them. They might write he could have instead of he could have. 1. Which three words does the poet contract? The answer is learned, wander, learned, wondered, and looked. 2. What do they mean? Learned means well educated, wandered means walked in a leisurely way, looked mean direct one's gaze towards someone or something. 3. How should they be written and how many syllables should they have? Learned have two syllables, wandered have two syllables, and looked have one syllable. 4. What are the two other words that Whitman could have contracted in the same way? Answer is lectured and ranged are two possible ways to contract. Grouping words. 5. Whitman has used lots of pairs in the poem. For example, when he describes the calculations that the astronomer uses, the proofs, the figures. Find 4 more examples of Whitman's use of pairs. The answer is Whitman has used lots of pairs in the poem. The proofs, the figures, the charts and diagrams, tired and sick, rising and gliding, time to time. 6. Can you also find the trio of verbs he has used? Answer. To add, divide and measure. 7. Find two examples of alliteration, repetition of the same sounds or of the same kinds of sounds at the beginning of words or in stressed syllables that draw attention to keywords and images. Answer is diagrams, to add and divide, lectured with much applause in the lecture room, soon, sick, mystical, moist, time to time, silence, stars. C. Learning about language. 1. In each of the following sentences, there is an adjective phrase which begins with a preposition of, with, in, etc. Underline each phrase. A. The balloon with the yellow strips burst loudly. Here with the yellow strips is adjective phrase. 2. The dog under the table was growling at the cat on the chair under the table. See, those hills in the distance form the border between the two countries. In the distance between the two countries, or adjective phrases. D. The driver of the tractor slowed down and stopped of the tractor is an adjective phrase. E. We went to visit the man with the large garden. With the large garden is an adjective phrase. F. She spoke to the woman in the green dress yesterday. In the green dress is an adjective phrase. G. The love between mother and child is very strong. Between mother and child is an adjective phrase. H. The artist's painting of the sea and the hills was sold for a vast sum. Of the sea and the hills is an adjective phrase. Thanks for listening. For new videos, don't forget to subscribe my channel. And if you like my videos, please share and like.